Welcome back, a classic, the All-American Soapbox Derby. You're looking at picturesque Camden, Maine. In winter, a quiet town on the coast. In summer, a beehive of activity with something for everyone, tourists and natives alike. And today, the site of the 1995 Maine Soapbox Derby Championship. Hello everyone, I'm Jim Crocker, and welcome to what is an American tradition, and today promises to be no exception. It's the first running of the Soapbox Derby Championship in Maine since 1972. Joining me today here in Camden for the races, Lee Goldberg. Lee, what can we expect from these young drivers?
Jim, this should be just a great afternoon. 102 drivers representing 43 different towns here in the state, all competing for some great prizes. The top driver is going to get a $1,000 savings bond, a free mountain bike, and of course why everybody is here, to earn a trip to the National Soapbox Derby Championships later this year in Akron, Ohio. Everybody wants to go to Ohio. Only one of these drivers will, so it should be a lot of fun.
It's a great day for racing, bright, sunny, and warm. Sharon Rose joins Lee and me for some behind-the-scenes looks at the Soapbox Derby. What have you got in store for us, Sharon?
Jim, I'm going to be right in the middle of the action. I'll be hopping around the course, showing everybody what happens in areas like the staging area, where the drivers in their cars weigh in and the pit crews make sure everything's set for a safe race. We'll be talking to some race officials who are so important to the smooth operation of the day. And I'm sure I'll be able to make some time to stop by the concession stand. Many local nonprofit groups have set up booths. They're selling everything from lobster rolls to fresh squeezed lemonade.
Wait a minute, I was told we'd be too busy for the concession stand.
Well, I don't think I will be, but I'll tell you what, Jim, I'll save you some homemade apple pie. How's that?
I'll hold you to it, Sharon. Thanks a lot. The 1995 Soapbox Derby Championship in Maine is just about to get underway. We'll be back with all the excitement right after this.
Murphy Brown and Cheers will not be seen tonight, so that we may bring you this Soapbox Derby special.
You're watching Channel 2 WLD.
Ohio in 1933, when Myron Scott convinced his boss at the Dayton Daily News to sponsor a downhill race for homemade cars. An amazing crowd of 40,000 watched as 362 boys ran the hill one hot August day in racers made from every conceivable material. You can enjoy the thrill of Derby weekend when 102 boys and girls from all over Maine continue the Soapbox tradition June 17th and 18th in Camden.
Two drivers, a trip to Akron, Ohio, and the All-American Soapbox Derby. Lee?
We look at some of the rules for today's competition. All the drivers are in the stock division. The weight limit for the car and the driver is a combined 200 pounds. Drivers are between 9 and 16 years of age. Each race will be made up out of 2 heats, and we'll get into that a little bit more later. After the first heat, the drivers change lanes and exchange wheels to try and keep things fair, and the winner is determined by the best overall time of the 2 heats.
We're in the qualifying races, and Lee, in this race, we've got Max Sprague, a 13-year-old 7th grader from the Cape Elizabeth Middle School.
He'll be challenged by Taylor Stenger from St. George Elementary. Taylor is 10 years old.
Now, Max starts this race 0.0194 seconds behind Taylor. Mac beat Jonathan Harbison to get here, and he's driving the number 89 Portland Yacht Services car.
Taylor is here because he defeated Tony Maeda earlier in the day.
These two guys are powered only by gravity, and the difference is maybe waxing. That's how close it is. The winner in that one, Taylor Stenger. Taylor beat Mac by 0.492 seconds, and he will move on to the next round. And Lee, this is just how close it gets.
I tell you what, these guys, as you said, just coming down with gravity and trying to keep low to stop the wind resistance. And Taylor comes up first, so Mac will have to call it a day.
Lee, in this race we have local favorite Chris Zach. He's from Camden, 12 years old, heading into the 6th grade.
His opponent will be Daniel Smith, who is from just down the road in Rockport. He goes to Rockport Elementary School and is 11 years old.
Now, Chris is driving the Country Inn at Camden Rockport number 44. He beat Alexandra Harjula and Sean Crow to get to this round against Dan Smith. He's a big basketball fan and also does judo over at the Camden Y.
Smith lost the first heat, so he has to win this by more than 0.2996 seconds if he wants to advance.
Now, Chris Zach won that first heat over in lane 2, and it looks like Dan Smith is going to win this heat in lane 2, but he didn't win it by enough. Chris Zach will be moving on to the next round on total time. Chris Zach winning by 0.1161 seconds.
It's not just the drivers and parents who are busy today. Track officials are up at the top of the hill where they make sure the cars and the drivers are ready to go. That's where we'll find Sharon Rose.
This is where it all begins. This is the staging area where the drivers and their cars weigh in. Jim Nolan is the man in charge here. Jim, do the drivers weigh in after every race?
Yes, they do. they have to ensure that there's no weight, no car and driver over the weight of 200 pounds.
200 is the limit.
That's the maximum.
And has anybody been disqualified today because they've been over?
No, we've been allowed, or the drivers have been allowed to eliminate weight if they are over. They have weights in the car to ensure that they stay within the 200-pound limit.
All right, and does it change that much between race to race?
It can. If a child would have a Coke, a 12-ounce can of Coke, could mean as much as a pound more. Or if they have a hamburger or anything. So if that does happen, then they would have to take the weight out of the car.
And I would imagine it is advantageous to be as close to that limit as possible to help carry them down the hill?
Yes, but today, from what I understand, the weight hasn't been that much of a factor. Cars of lighter weight have actually been winning. And it all depends upon the skill of the operator and the driver going down the hill, how straight he or she steer the car.
All right, we sure have seen some skilled drivers here today. I'm off to the starting line. I'll check back in when I get there.
Tavis Moonen getting his car ready to go in the Unicel Special, the 10-year-old from Camden.
And in lane 2, B.J. Grindle, Barry Grindle from Blue Hill. He's also 10. He's in the 5th grade at Evangel Baptist Academy in Buckport. They head down the hill, the Spirit of Blue Hill, sponsored by Martin's Auto and Marine. The number 52 car of Barry J. Grindle took the first heat.
Tavis says he wants to be an inventor when he gets a little bit older. He's going to try and invent a victory here.
As they're more than halfway down the hill, B.J. Grindle has the Spirit of Blue Hill moving well. Can he hold on?
Jim, that was a pretty close one right there.
Well, I'll tell you, they're all pretty closely. That one went in Barry Grindle's favor. BJ beat Tavis Moonen by .0327 seconds. He'll move on to the next round and race again.
Most of the spectators lining the hill today are experiencing the Derby for the very first time, but for others, this is like a homecoming.
FDR was in his second term as president. Jimmy Fox was belting 58 home runs for the Philadelphia Athletics. Burns and Allen were giving families all over the country plenty of laughs as they gathered around their radios. And Spencer Tracy was winning the Academy Award for his role as Father Flanagan in the movie Boys Town. The year was 1938, and a skinny 14-year-old from Rockland named Pearlie Bartlett was busy building his soapbox car in Sherman Lord's garage.
He done all the designing and things. So when I tell you the truth, when I first made the car, I didn't like it because all the rest had brunt noses and stuff, and mine was down point. And I said, hey, that looks a lot different. Of course, all the race cars then had a big radiator on them, you know. And so I thought I had to look something like that. But he said, no, we're designing it this way.
The innovative design was good enough to win the local derby, and Pearlie headed to Portland with 112 other drivers for the state championship. In Rockland, there had been a hill for the derby, but in Portland, in front of what is now Hadlock Field, it was a different story.
Here and in Portland, too, we had a large ramp at the top of the hill. You come off a ramp. But in Camden, they didn't need it because the hill was so steep anyway.
Pearlie may not have been the biggest contestant nor the oldest, but on that day in Portland, he was the fastest, and that's all that mattered. He and his racer, made of oak and cloth, were on their way to Akron and the National Soapbox Derby.
We drove out by automobile. We stayed at the Mayflower Hotel out there, all the Derby contestants. I remember someone called on the phone, they got the wrong number, and they said, I want to know, who are you? I told them, they said, boy, you got a funny accent.
All those memories stored away for so many years came alive again 57 years later, helping his grandnephew, Benjamin St. Cyr, prepare his car for the race here in Camden. Completing the pre-race crew is Benjamin's grandfather. Walter's workshop served as headquarters for Derby construction, and he credits his wife for getting the ball rolling.
Pearlie, of course, my brother-in-law, having won 50 years ago, and then we got the idea. I think my wife came up with the idea that wouldn't it be good if his nephew could race in this race? And Grandpa's always been the one that came along when something needed fixing, so that's how I got into it.
It has been a cooperative effort from day one. Walter with knowledge of tools, Pearlie with the driving experience, and Benjamin providing the youth and energy.
All the things that were done underneath he had to do it because he's the only one to get down on his knees and get up again.
With the car completed, it was time to put it through the paces, the pre-race trials. As Walter watched his grandson try the car for the first time, he thought about what a wonderful experience the Soapbox has been for Ben and for all of the drivers.
I think it's a good thing to see more of these positive programs for youth being provided for them. I'm glad they're reviving this program.
Today, the circle is complete, and as Benjamin competes in today's race, you know a little bit of Pearlie Bartlett is riding with him as he heads for that finish line one more time.
You're looking at 9-year-old Arthur Andrews, who has his game face on for this race.
Boy, does he ever. His opponent is Stacy Mariner from Rockport. She's 10 years old, goes to Rockport Elementary School, and she looks ready to go.
Arthur is from Camden, so he's got the home crowd behind him, and he also has a .0234 second advantage.
But Stacy Mariner in the Mariners paving number 31 car, Lee, might have the home street advantage. Stacy's dad and Mariners paving redid the street especially for the Soapbox Derby.
They are pretty close at the halfway point of this race, coming down the bottom of the hill.
Stacy's got a lot of time to make up. Looks like she might have crossed first in that heat. Indeed she did, but she didn't get it. Arthur will move on by 32 1/1000th of a second lead.
Sharon Rose is back atop the hill. Let's go check in with her. Sharon?
This is where the butterflies really begin for these kids. This is the starting line. Tad Woodhall gets them going, and all you do is pull this lever?
Pull a lever, mechanical linkage to the stops at the front of the cars. They release simultaneously, and the kids get a fresh start.
How precise is this?
As precise as mechanical linkage can be, quite precise.
To make it all fair.
That's right, it is fair.
Let's let one rip.
Drivers, are you ready? 1, 2, 3.
And they're off at the top of the hill. The number 96 Blue Hill Fair special of William Mad Dog Bill Hyler in lane 1, Lee.
Joey McNeil is in lane 2. He's a 13-year-old who goes to Garland Street Middle School in Bangor, right down the road from Channel 2. He wants to be a pilot. Hopefully he could fly down this hill.
Mad Dog Bill Hyler had the advantage, .0572 seconds after one heat. Doesn't get much closer than that, Lee Goldberg.
I tell you what, Jim, that was an amazingly close race. Look at this. On the replay, you see about a quarter of an inch separating the two cars.
.0019 seconds separated those two. Mad Dog Bill Hyler won it. Interestingly enough, he was in a dead heat in an earlier race. Next up, Molly Brown from Falmouth, driving the in-town tune-up number 98.
She's taking on Shawnee Dog, Sean McNair, driving the Moss Tent Special number 5.
Molly had a .0535 second advantage after one heat. She's driving right down the outside of lane 1, hoping to carry enough speed through the finish line.
McNair goes to Rockport Elementary School. Would love to tell all his friends about a win here.
Did he get it? That last race we thought was close. This one was just as closely.
You see both cars having trouble stopping, and Sean goes into the hay bales.
Trying to carry as much speed as he could. The unsinkable Molly Brown swept both heats from Sean McNair, winning this one by .0024 seconds. Molly Brown will move into the quarterfinal round.
Most of today's competitors have only seen each other face-to-face at either a workshop or some of the trial races, but at least 2 of today's racers know each other very well.
Vicki Late is 10 years old. Her brother Parker is 12. Like all of today's drivers, they're both well-rounded kids with many interests. For example, Vicki loves softball. Parker is a Boy Scout. Vicki plays the piano. Parker prefers the baritone. They're both pretty competitive, so how do they handle the fact that they're both in the Soapbox Derby?
Well, we don't usually talk about it. But on the day of the race, I'm going to beat her.
You might think having 2 children in the same race would be nerve-wracking, but Nancy Late and her husband Chip have found the experience to be a good one.
We've had a wonderful time as a family. The program has been very well organized, and so we've been building these cars since before, well, right around Christmas time. But yes, with a son and daughter involved, it's made it very interesting. And they've had to learn to be patient because my husband and I can't work on two cars at the same time and take turns. And then, of course, the day of the race will be interesting to see, but they're rooting each other on, and we've had a lot of fun as a family.
And Vicki definitely sees the positive side to building two cars in the same family.
Well, my dad built his first, so then he would get all the mistakes on his own. But it's been fun having us both in the race, so it's another good chance to win.
If the final race came down to Vicki versus Parker, it would pose an interesting dilemma for Mom and Dad. But for the Lates, winning or losing has never been a big part of the Soapbox Derby experience.
Any opportunity that you can work on a project with your children is just wonderful. Especially, you know, where both parents are working, which is probably the norm nowadays. When you can have something that you're focused on together, it goes a long way.
It's a great day to have the home video cameras out here in Camden. Seth Brown in the McGuntacook Campground number 79.
Taking on Amber Dickey from Lincolnville, Maine. She is representing the Camden River House Hotel, and Jim, they haven't even opened for business yet. How about that?
They're right off the race course. No more appropriate sponsor, perhaps, than Camden River House. Seth beat Nick Heald, Ian Lucier, and Shay Mason to get to this race. And he's in a tight one with Amber.
Amber Dickey is one of two remaining girls alive in the race, and she wants to move on to the next round.
Only 14 girls entered in the 102 racer field, and that one went to Amber Dickey. Amber will move on by beating Seth Brown by .0833 seconds. She's made it to the final 8.
It is a gorgeous day here in Camden, and we have more racing to come your way. So stay with us as we continue our coverage of the 1995 Maine State Soapbox Derby Championships.
When Chris Olson heard the Soapbox Derby was back in Maine, he just smiled. As a member of Big Brothers Big Sisters, he knew building a car with his brother Peter was just the ticket. But they needed a sponsor. When Bob Hammer, owner of the Blue Jacket in Searsport, heard about the Derby, he signed on as a sponsor. What he needed was a driver. You can probably guess the rest. Soapbox Derby, bringing people together, June 17th and 18th in Camden.
With the highest inventory.
Orono, Maine would like to take that spot.
But to do so, he'll have to gain a lot of ground on Kyle Young from Lincolnville. The 9-year-old third grader has a .0638 second advantage after the first heat in this round.
Majorano is sponsored by DeGrasse Jewelers, and I'm sure all the Red Riot fans in Orono are rooting for him now.
Kyle Young's driving the Western Auto number 71, Lee, and as they hit the shield, it's pretty much dead even.
Both drivers heads low, trying to cut down on the wind resistance, trying to pick up the extra speed.
Kyle Young trying to hold off Michael Majorano. Did he do it? No. Majorano moves into the quarterfinals by .0533 seconds.
And Kyle Young gave it his all, but will have to wait until next year.
As you can see by the crowds here today in Camden, 1995 has seen renewed interest in the Derby, which owes its existence to a man who just happened to be in the right place at the right time. In 1933, Myron Scott, a photographer for the Daily News in Dayton, Ohio, saw some neighborhood boys racing homemade cars down a hill. Scott, known for his imagination, had a great idea. He told the boys to come back to the hill a week later to compete in a race with a trophy as the prize. The boys spent the week fashioning cars made out of every conceivable material, and on the day of the race, 19 boys showed up to participate. Amazed at the interest, Scott went to his boss and talked him into promoting and sponsoring a regional competition. He was given $200 to organize the event. On August 19, 1933, an astounding 362 kids showed up to compete, and an estimated crowd of 40,000 lined the hill to watch. On that day, the Soapbox Derby turned from a dream into a reality.
What the epic Olympic Games were to ancient Greece, what the glamorous Circus Maximus was to traditional Rome, what the jousting tournament was to medieval Europe, the annual All-American Soapbox Derby is to the youth of America.
Word of the Derby spread to other newspapers across the country, and a national competition began to evolve. In 1936, Derby Downs in Akron, Ohio was built, and it has served as home to the All-American Soapbox Derby ever since.
In over 100 cities, towns, and hamlets, a green flag sweeps downward. The barrier drops, and they're off. Thousands of happy, eager boys whiz down the coaster trail in a supreme effort to win the greatest amateur sporting honor ever to come to a boy.
The Derby grew in leaps and bounds through the 40s, despite the suspension of the race for 4 years during World War II. In 1950, the oil can trophy race became a fixture at the Derby. Celebrities like Joey Brown, Edgar Bergen, and Jimmy Stewart were invited to participate in the race each year. It was fun for the spectators on hand, the celebrities themselves, and it was great publicity for the Derby.
It's Jimmy in lane 1, Joe in lane 2, and Edgar in lane 3. Oh, that Joey Brown's a card now, isn't he? But Edgar won, and he got the oil can.
In 1952, an 11-year-old from Columbus, Georgia, Joe Lund, gave the Derby one of its shining moments. Abandoned by his father 3 years before, Joe built his car in his uncle's garage. He quickly gained the crowd's support when, after winning his first heat, he smashed his car on the barrier behind the finish line. While Joe was taken to the first aid tent, the track workers tried patching his car back together, so at least he could make one more run down the hill. Miraculously, Joe kept winning, heat after heat. And the rest, as they say, is history.
He's holding that beat-up, taped-up car to a straight, true course. And if the goodwill of a crowd can help, little Joe can't miss. He's won all their hearts. This is it. As they buzz the finish line, inches separate the noses of the racers. Joe Lund wins. It's Joe Lund. Now, this is one-time stick-to-itiveness paid off. In more ways than one, huh, Joe?
Through the remainder of the 50s and 60s, advances in materials and innovative new designs like the layback style found their way into the Derby. Another long overdue change came in 1971, when girls were allowed to participate for the first time. 2 years later, 27 of the 251 drivers were females, and 2 placed in the top 9. But 1973 will be remembered for the scandal that nearly killed the Derby. Jim Gronin of Boulder, Colorado, a cousin of the previous year's winner, took the checkered flag as champion. But an examination of his car after the race found an electromagnet hidden in the nose. The magnet allowed the metal baffle plate at the starting line to pull Joe's car forward as they began the race, giving him a decided advantage. News of the scandal in Akron spread quickly throughout the country, and sponsor support for the Derby evaporated. But the people of Akron didn't give up. They kept the race going for several years with the support of local businesses, until national sponsors, convinced again that the greatest amateur racing event in the world was indeed an endeavor worth backing, renewed their commitment to the Derby. Last year, Derby history was made when Danielle Del Ferraro became the first driver ever to win consecutive championships. In 1993, she won the Kit Car division, and in '94, she won the Masters division. Today, the All-American Soapbox Derby has been restored to its former glory, attracting drivers from all corners of the globe and providing boys and girls with a wonderful opportunity. The same opportunity that Myron Scott envisioned when he saw those kids racing their homemade cars in Dayton back in 1933.
Back to live action where 8 is enough. We're down to the quarterfinals, folks. Taylor Stenger trying to move into the semis.
And Arthur Andrews with the Camden Downtown Business Group number 81, his opponent, each of them looking for a spot in the Final Four.
Stenger trails Andrews by .0943 seconds into this second heat.
Tay Stenger, driving the Down East Air number 84, says his ambition is to be a paleontologist when he grows up. So as you can guess, Lee, his favorite movie is Jurassic Park.
And Jim, Arthur Andrews already has won today because he says his ambition is to be a diver like his dad on the day before Father's Day. That's a great gift.
It sure is. Who came out on top in that heat? It looked like Tay Stenger, but not by enough. Arthur Andrews will move on. He'll get a spot in the Final Four, Lee.
Look at how Stenger goes almost across the white line there on the left-hand side, almost into the hay bale, and that might have cost him in overall time.
So Arthur Andrews is in the semifinals. Okay. Can William Mad Dog Bill Heiler join him?
To do that, he'll have to beat Christopher Zach from Camden, whose favorite athlete is Larry Bird. The legend has pulled off many famous steal in his career. Can Zach steal the victory here?
Well, he'll do it from lane 2, where a lot of races have been won. Bill Heiler is a great story. Mad Dog Bill and his family traveled around the country towing a trailer in which they built this car starting back in February, Lee.
These two are very close, crossing the halfway point. It is anybody's race, Jim.
Sure is, but that lane 2 looks to be hot for Zach. He'll win that heat. Did he win it by enough to advance?
He did, Jim. Zach advances into the semifinals, beating William Heiler by .0325 seconds.
And he's sure excited about it. As we see on the replay, Zach driving in lane 2, where so far 70% of the races have been won easily.
Let's go to Sharon Rose, who is trackside with a Soapbox veteran and rookie.
Lee, Jim, I just can't stress enough how much of a family event this really is. Shay Mason raced in today's race. She made it to the top 25, and she is carrying on quite a family tradition. Her grandfather, Dick Cummings, raced back in Brewer in 1954. How'd you do back then, Dick?
Well, we both won actually the same number of races, so it was quite a thrill for me, and she's really done a good job, and I'm happy with her.
You must be very, very proud of her.
I am. We worked, all spring on the car, putting it together, and lining it up, and making sure everything went well, and she did really well. So, and I'm real happy with her, and real proud.
Shay, you must be happy too. You didn't win it all, but you did very well. How do you feel about that?
Well, I'm happy, and I feel good because I made it pretty far.
You did make it pretty far. Is this your first race?
Yeah.
It's your first race. Will you be back next year?
You bet.
Yeah.
Grandpa says you bet. Now, I understand you raced this race for someone very special. Who's that?
My nanny Cummins. She's in the hospital.
My mother and her great-grandmother is watching this from room 524 in the Maine Medical Center. And this is for her. Hi, Mom.
All right. Jim and Lee, back to you.
Thanks, Sharon. As you can see, some rain has fallen here on Washington Street in Camden as Molly Brown gets set in her quarterfinal.
She'll be taking on Amber Dickey, who has been busy today. Amber has beaten Nikki Adams, Joni Dishner, Eric Sylvia, and Seth Brown to get into this quarterfinal matchup with Molly Brown.
To make the Final Four, she'll have to beat another Brown, the unsinkable Molly Brown. Molly driving in lane 1. Amber in lane 2, Lee.
We saw the raindrops have started to fall. The track could be a little bit slippery. We'll have to see how that affects the drivers.
They head toward the finish line. The final 2 girls that are left in this competition from 14 starters.
And they are nose to nose at the finish line, Jim. It was, again, very close.
Well, I'll tell you, most of these races have been too close to call, Lee. I don't think I want to call that one until I get a look at the replay.
Well, Jim, lucky for us, neither one of us has to make the final decision. In fact, no human is. It's a computer system that has been installed. It monitors where the tires cross the finish line. It is right on a gray piece of tape, as you see there, in front of the white line, and that helps decide who wins and who loses.
In that race, it was Molly Brown. She's into the Final Four, Lee.
And that's exactly where Michael Majorano would like to be, the youngster from Orono, trying to get into that final Elite Four.
To do so, he'll have to hang on to the lead he holds over B.J. Grindle, Lee. B.J. driving the Spirit of Blue Hill number 52 is .0954 seconds back after the first heat in this race. I gotta like B.J. I gotta pick him in this race because his favorite musicians are some of mine. The Beach Boys, although he hardly seems old enough at age 10 to remember In My Room or the other big hits.
They are rocking down the hill as we speak, Jim. This one again is going to be close. Majorano in lane number 1, trying to hang on.
And the winner of this one gets the final berth in the semifinal round, the Final Four of the 1995 Maine Soapbox Derby Championship. It was close. They've all been close. Who got the nod, Lee?
It's Michael Majorano moving into the semifinals, and he will have to take on the unsinkable Molly Brown, who has all of a sudden become the crowd favorite.
And B.J. Grindle's had a great day. He'll have to call it a day and come back next year.
You know, one of the side benefits to the Soapbox Derby is its ability to bring people together. In many cases, people who were complete strangers just a few months ago have become good friends. It's funny what building a car together can do.
If going to the beach or throwing a frisbee around on a Sunday afternoon and making new friends sounds like a good way to spend your leisure time, then you might want to call Big Brothers Big Sisters. Chris Olson did.
A lot of people that I've talked to about being big brothers a lot of times think that you have to go out and spend a lot of money, and you really don't. You know, it's basically what's up here in your imagination that you can decide to do.
When Chris heard about the Soapbox Derby, he knew it would be a great project for his brother Peter.
It just seemed like a really interesting thing to do. It's something that they hadn't done in years, and I know Peter would be about the right age and the right size to get into it, and he's the type that likes to build things.
But Chris and Peter needed a sponsor. That's where Bob Hammer, owner of the Blue Jacket Shipcrafters in Searsport, entered the picture.
Well, I was reading in the paper, I believe it was the Camden paper. I saw the article on the Owl's Head Museum wanting to sponsor the Soapbox Derby. I thought it was a great idea, and I wanted to be a small part of it in some way. So I contacted the museum and suggested that if they have anyone there who calls them to seek a sponsor, that I'd be happy to work on that with them.
The pre-race team was complete, and as an added bonus, Bob's workshop at the Blue Jacket made an ideal place to build Peter's car. So for the past few months, Chris and Peter have spent much of their time together traveling from Bangor to Searsport, assembling their Soapbox Derby for today's race.
It's kind of a challenge for both of us because he's used to building regular little car models, and here this thing is full size, and it was just enjoyable. It's fun once we finally got most of the first part of it together, the bolts and so forth, when we got to put on the steering and the brakes and the wheels and so forth. It made a lot more fun.
With the assembly completed and the wheels attached, it was time to try out the car under real driving conditions. The first step was a thorough inspection by Derby officials. Next, the long walk to the top of the hill. And finally, the moment of truth was at hand. That first run down the hill has to be a great thrill for the drivers, but both Chris and Bob know that for Peter, no matter how he does in today's competition, the experience he has gained will last forever.
Well, to me, it's a little bit of an experience of life where Peter and Chris have the opportunity to begin a project, see it through, make all the deadlines, and this is what our business world is all about, competing and meeting your deadline, beating the competition, and looking for advantages. This is the test of life.
It's a beautiful day here in Camden, a beautiful day for racing, and a great day for sailing. Those folks enjoying a sail out into Penobscot Bay while we enjoy the racing of the Soapbox Derby here in Camden. The 1995 Maine Soapbox Derby Championships will continue right after this.
The best guarantees at GM Pollock & Sons.
Upon months of planning and hard work, but for all those involved here in Camden, this has truly been a labor of love. When Kathy Latham took off in the car with her mother headed for Bangor one day last year, she had no idea how much her world was about to change.
We were just driving along, going up to Bangor, and she said, wouldn't it be great if the museum could bring back the Soapbox Derby race now that MBNA has cleaned up that whole area of town, and why not bring it back to the same road that it used to be run on?
It was the perfect fit. The Owl's Head Transportation Museum, with its impressive array of classic cars, motorcycles, trucks, and airplanes, would be an ideal organization to bring back the Soapbox Derby to Maine. But they couldn't do it alone.
We have had support from not only the town of Camden, but the police department, the fire department, the Chamber of Commerce, museum volunteers, MBNA people who work there, people from the community who just came out of the woodwork and donated bales of hay or tires or whatever we needed. We had standby medical services offered, ambulance services, practice course to hold the practice sessions. Anything that we asked for, we got.
A sizable contribution of money and volunteer time from MBNA, a bank card company here in Camden, supplied the spark that set the wheels in motion.
It's like Christmas time in June. The race has embodied the whole town, the business, the local community, grandfathers, school children, parents, everybody's involved in it and very excited, and just a fun event.
Today, window displays like this one at the Pop and Pack are all over town, symbolic of the tremendous community support the Derby has received. And for Carol Annis, like for so many other people, the Soapbox Derby stirs a memory or two.
When I was about 11 years old, my brother was doing it. And actually, I thought I could do just as well as he did. But because I was a girl, I couldn't do that. So now I'm sponsoring my niece to run in this race, but it's fun to watch her even if I can't do it.
As you might expect, the area's young people were an easy sell. In Sue Wooten's 4th grade class at Rockport Elementary School, The Derby has been a regular topic of discussion and a positive force in the lives of her students.
It's a year-long commitment when you think about it, because the kids really have to make a total commitment. They have to structure their time throughout the year, and they know that it's almost like the homework assignment, where they know that they have to, by a certain time, have their car together. They have to have their stickers on. They have to know what they're doing with their car. So it's a real commitment, and fourth grade's a good time for them to start really thinking about that.
Even the older kids have jumped on the Derby bandwagon. For months, dozens of students at Madomic Valley High School spent time working on a mural commemorating the spirit of the All-American Soapbox Derby.
We just tried to show nostalgia, how it's a thing of the past, the entire soapbox concept, and we're trying to bring it back. And that's why we've antiqued the entire thing. We've made, the national pride. We're just trying to incorporate everything that we can think of America to be.
It was an ambitious project, but the results were spectacular. Classic soapbox cars and life-size figures merging with the backdrop to create a three-dimensional display worthy of prime viewing space at the Owl's Head Museum. It's a tribute to the Soapbox Derby's glorious past, but clearly points to the future, which, according to Kathy Latham, is very bright indeed.
I think next year we'll see 4 or 5 regional races rather than one state race. And if we can get satellite races set up all over the state, that will mean instead of just one child going on to Akron, we could have 4 or 5 representing Maine next year, which is really our ultimate goal in bringing it back this year, was to spread the doctrine throughout the state and get more communities involved.
43 different towns here in the state of Maine involved today. One of those, Camden. One of their drivers, Arthur Andrews, who is all business.
So is Chris Zach. He's also from Camden. These guys go to the same school, or did last year. Chris will be going into the 6th grade, which is middle school. Chris's ambition, one of his ambitions, to become a stock car driver. Perhaps today's racing is going to be good training for Chris Zach.
This has been a day full of fun, but make no mistake, we are down to the serious business. This is the semifinals. The winner moves into the finals.
Arthur Andrews came into this race with a slight lead. Can he hold on?
Arthur Andrews had a very slim .0092 lead. Chris Zach needed to win it by more than that, and I think Andrews took the race and will be moving into the finals, and he just got the word.
Let's check the replay. Here it is. Arthur has the edge as they hit the finish tape. He sends Chris Zach packing, and Arthur has had himself a day he will long remember. He'll be either the winner or the runner-up of the renewal of the Soapbox Derby here in Maine.
It seems only fitting that someone from Camden would make it into the finals.
I haven't seen Sharon Rose for a while. What's up, Sharon?
Jim, I had to ask someone to hold my mic for me because I have so much here. We've got pizza, we've got a donut, we've got Clearly Canadian to quench my thirst after such a long day. And did I promise you apple pie, Jim? But you'll notice I have 2 forks, one for you and one for me. I'll bring it right up to you.
Well, it's good to see you made good on your promise, Sharon, but the eating will have to wait. It's the second semifinal about to be run. The gate is about to drop.
Michael Majorano from Orono would like a bigger piece of pie than the one you and Sharon will have, Jim. He wants to get a berth into the finals.
Lee, you're just complaining because you didn't get anything to eat. No complaints from the unsinkable Molly Brown's camp. She has won the last 6 times down the hill. If she does it this time, she'll be in the finals.
Majorano needs to win this race by more than 1/10 of a second to move on. It's going to be close.
They've all been close, Lee. Majorano crossed first. Did he cross by enough?
He did not. Molly Brown will move on despite losing that heat.
Just where she'd hoped she'd be earlier this week when she talked with News Center's Bob Elliott.
The last time we had a soapbox derby in the state of Maine, the boys did the racing and the girls stayed on the sideline.
Young men with gumption, with get up and go, and the straight spines it takes to face up to stiff competition.
But that was then and this is now, and Girls Lib has moved kids like Molly Brown out of the pit, off the bubble, and right into the front row. In fact, she's even one of the favorites in the upcoming June 17th Camden Classic. What do you think your strategy is, or what do you think it takes to win?
Probably just to wax it a lot and go straight.
And I noticed that you were doing a lot of those things where you're really tucking in and tucking under.
Yeah, you
like
have to tuck in so then the wind will just go over you like this.
The wind just misses you or it goes over?
It just goes over, because if you're sitting up like this, then the wind, it's just going to stop and block you.
So that would slow you down?
Yeah.
So you try and get down as...
Yeah, like this.
Now, can you see like that? I mean...
Yeah, just barely, just a crack about that big.
Now, behind every soapbox kid, you'll find a soapbox parent, literally. Molly's dad, Peter, helped her build the car, helps her practice, and may even be more nervous about the race than his daughter is. What fun! What Norman Rockwell family fun!
The event is as apple pie and ice cream All-American as you're ever going to see. Real sweet stuff. Homespun, sweet American stuff. Here you go.
Molly will be competing against 101 other boys and girls. Kind of scary. Suppose this fourth grader has any second thoughts, cold feet, or butterflies? Nah. You think you can win this race in Camden?
Yeah, I think so. I'll try.
That's great. That's a good attitude.
And the cheering is for you too, boy. You won.
For years, the boys won all these races. That's because only boys could get in. Now we've got some new rules, and my money's on the unsinkable Molly Brown.
Jim, it has been a long day for Arthur Andrews, but he is in the finals. Racing started at 8 o'clock this morning, and he's still around.
So is Molly Brown, the unsinkable one. Bob Elliott's got his money on her. We'll have to see if he made a good bet.
This is the finals. This is the first of 2 heats. The winner with the best overall time will be the Soapbox Derby champion of 1995.
And you'll see both heats, this one and then, of course, when they swap wheels and exchange lanes to even things out. In the next heat, Molly Brown will be in lane 1.
Jim, there is no difference between these cars. They are dead even coming down the stretch.
Could this be the day's second dead heat? I'll tell you, Lee, that finish will put the computer timing system to the test.
Lucky for us and the viewers, we've got the benefit of instant replay. We'll get a better look at this to see who crosses the finish line first, and it's going to be tough to call.
I don't think we can call it from there. The word from the judges' stand is that Molly Brown won by 17 one-thousandths of a second. It's that closely. What's that, about a quarter of an inch?
They traveled 600 feet to have a quarter of an inch separate them, and there is one more race to go.
The crowd really showing its appreciation as these kids are pushed back up the hill. We'll be back with a winner after this.
Where Buick quality is leading the way.
Termination. Molly Brown in the finals of the 1995 Maine Soapbox Derby Championship.
As is Arthur Andrews. And Jim, this is why 102 kids came to Camden today to get down to the final 2, and one of these 2 drivers will win the 95 Derby. And look at the first heat.
Brown leads by a quarter of an inch, Lee, 17 one-thousandths of a second as they load the cars into the starting gate for the final race of the day. The winner goes to Akron. The runner-up can be very proud of his or her finish.
All of these kids can be extremely proud, but as you said, one winner will go on, and that first heat was so exciting. It's amazing to see what these 2 will pull off for the second heat, and the winner of the 95 Soapbox Derby is ready to be crowned as we start our second heat.
Let's listen in as the starter heads them on their way. And they're off. Molly Brown in lane 1, Arthur Andrews in lane 2. One of them, Lee, in just about 450 feet, will be Maine's new Soapbox Derby champion.
Arthur needs to win this race outright because he lost the first heat, and they are dead even at the halfway point, almost there.
Molly Brown driving close to the outside line in lane 1, trying to hold on to that lead. Did she do it?
I think she did, Jim, and the crowd seems pretty excited about it as well.
It's officially Molly Brown drove the in-town tune-up number 98 to the Maine Soapbox Derby Championship. Arthur Andrews of Camden is the runner-up. Arthur will get a $500 kayak, a $750 savings bond, and many other great prizes, Lee.
You can see on the replay that Molly crosses the finish line well ahead of Arthur here. This race was not as close as the first heat was, although it would have been very tough to top that first heat. Molly Brown wins the Soapbox Derby. She also won all of the hearts here in Camden as well.
And Sharon Rose is standing by with the winner and a very happy dad.
We have one proud father and daughter here. Molly, what was your strategy coming down the hill?
Just stay low and go as fast as you can.
You were definitely the crowd favorite. Did that help you out, hearing the crowd cheering for you all the way down?
Yeah, I think it did, because they helped me feel like I could do it.
All right, you're Akron bound, and I know Dad knew all along that you could do it, didn't you, Dad?
I hoped she was unsinkable, and it turned out she was. We're pretty lucky.
What was going through your mind when she was going down the hill all those times, and especially this last time?
Well, I was running back and forth all the time, so I needed a break, but I'm glad she kept winning. Actually, it's been a wonderful day for us. Awful good bunch of people here, too. There's an awful good lot of good kids, and she's learned a lot of new friends, met a lot of new friends. It's an exciting day for us.
Molly, congratulations to you and good luck in Akron. Do us proud, okay?
Thanks.
All right. And that will wrap it up from the finish line. All I can say is this really has been a remarkable event. The sportsmanship, the cheering of the crowds, everybody has been just fantastic here today, and this has been a truly wonderful family event, and I'm very proud to have been a part of it. And of course, we'll be cheering on Molly when she goes to Akron, Ohio. Back to you, Lee, Jim.
Thanks, Sharon and Lee. What a great finish to a great day of racing. Very, very close in those final two heats between Molly and Arthur. But hey, the races were close all day long.
How about Molly Brown, one of just 14 girls to even enter this competition? There were 102 kids. She wins by 66 100ths of a second, and you just saw the look on her face. She was so excited, and even the kids who didn't win, it seemed everybody had a great time. Everybody was rooting for each other. It was really just a great sportsmanship kind of atmosphere, and the kids had a great time.
So Molly Brown goes on to Akron. She also gets a trip to Dover, Delaware for the MBNA 500 later on in the summer. And as you said, it seemed everybody that raced had a great time. But the folks in Camden had a great time.
This was just an amazing thing for the town. The entire area came out, and I heard some people saying this is the best Soapbox Derby they had ever seen, even the people who were in it years and years ago. So I think it's a great thing for the state, obviously a great thing for Camden to have this back again, and it was just a tremendous event.
So that does it from here in Camden. Soapbox Derby racing is back in Maine. Thanks a lot for joining us. We'll see you next year.